next time you say it,
Yeah.
outside.
Right. I didn't think of it. I just.
Yeah. It went fast. Delicious.
You request the motel. He said no.
Yeah. It's always it's like, you know.
It's still both.
It's still both. Yeah.
So thank you all for coming, and I'm sure there will be more people as the afternoon progresses.
Isn't she great?
Yes.
Angela McJunkin, just very intuitive, very feeling. She's also a friend of, a very good friend of my son, Jordan Cale, and that whole gang, Daniel Gray Marshall, Ivan, wonderful people, crazy as hell. Thank God. Or maybe that's the wrong word. I think what I'll do first is read from my upcoming, hopefully upcoming book. And it's my mem will be here all week if let me see. My memoirs, there we go. I have a speech impediment for some of you who don't know it. And the working title is called Ambitious Learnings, Memoirs of an Ex-Poet Laureate. And I guess a kind of introduction to it is, I'll just go with this working one. Also, I've never read prose before. So, again, it might take till next week, because I can't tap my foot to it. Okay, a large number of vignettes, all beginning as follows: 1973, Paris, 2001, Malice. This will be an autobiography with each piece introduced as a newswire bulletin. It will be written in poetic, I had to write this for who was my agent. To be written in poetic prose detailing experiences gained in and around some of the following people and places: Allen Ginsberg, Sherry Morris, Sonny and Jordan Kaler, Paul Sargland, Phoebe Stone, Ruth Stone, George McGovern, Gregory Corso, Dylan, Leonie Silverman, Bill Milos, and Samuel Beckett's girlfriend. I'm serious. That's the scary part. And lovers, a Belgian waitress, Parisians, Americans, Afro-Americans, a South American farmer's dog, a Japanese chemist, an Algerian prostitute working in Paris, an American Indian dancer, an Israeli cellist, a Canadian drug dealer with a clap, a Mexican poet, a Dutch maid, a Lithuanian psychologist, and perhaps a Martian or two. Let's see, and then there are the others, the haters, the war makers, a blind photographer, crazies, mayors, judges, senators, a senator's daughters, gossip columnists, painters, poets, thieves, toothless carnies, and a murderer. Many queens, but no kings. Actors and many schizophrenics. And finally, the places: Montreal, Toronto, New York City, Boston, Cambridge, Madison, Boulder, San Francisco, New Orleans, Tampa, Vermont, Newport, Paris, Hamburg, Ektonok, Chicago, Milwaukee, Columbus, Sun Prairie, and Berkeley. No wonder I have wrinkles. Yes, Jeff?
Here, really can't hear.
I can't hear back there, but there's nobody back there.
Can you be a little louder?
Oh, maybe if I turned on the microphone. I'm very sorry. We'll leave it to our kids to say, hey, maybe you want to turn the damn thing on. In fact, which really brings up a good point, because after the events of September 11th, we had booked this before. But after those days, I was going to cancel. It just didn't seem to make any sense. And I talked with Angela and her gang, her pals. And Angela kept saying, you have to do it. We have to do it. We have to do it. And damn it, they're right. Which is the beauty of our children. That's the beauty. Oh yeah, okay. What the hell am I here for? I'm doing a poetry reading, all right? All right, this first poem is a poem I wrote to Chris Morris, who was a fellow writer of mine. I published a little chapbook of his. We both wrote for the Daily Cardinal. And now he writes for, what's that Hollywood thing, Variety with the V, yeah. He writes for them, so he lives out there. And every now and then I write to him, and it usually comes out something like this. Dear Chris, now picture this. Only one beer left, 2 dimes and a nickel in my pocket, 4 crumpled cigarettes on a red desk, and this bill comes, see? This bill is for $2.50 from the County Mental Health Center, sliding scale. I was there 4 times kicking the shit out of my father, a father who I never knew, because he didn't teach me how to throw a curveball, but he always went to church, drunk or sober, and wore flashy ties, which was pretty hip back then, but he nearly broke my face once for saying fuck. But my mother made him stop because she thought herself a poet, and she had a poem about getting her foot caught in a spittoon, which was cute but not very relevant, because most people don't know what a spittoon is. So I'm thinking that $2.50 is a real knock on the head, considering I still write poems like this and have only 2 dimes and a nickel in my pocket, and now the cigarettes are gone too. Is it raining out there? Chris, good back. Dig this, I'm walking, dude.
It's great.
Yeah, I like it. Here's a series of very short poems I wrote a while ago. It's called, the bunch is called Poems About Poets for Poets. So it's a really clicky kind of thing. We'll hang out at top of the park on Tuesday afternoon. Kerouac's Road, high on ungracious mileage, no speed limit, no booze limit. Maybe he couldn't choose, damn it. Ruth Stone's Moment. And this is referring also to George Barker, who at that time was considered England's best living poet, and Ruth Stone, who I think is America's best living poet. It all took place at the Fess Hotel, not the Fess restaurant. I'm talking about the hotel in my apartment, the bridal suite. So it's called Ruth Stone's Moment. Calling George Barker a drunken old lech with no pecker after he called her a cow with no tits. This is true. Ginsberg's groin, tired, protected by the sacred fingers of Shiva. Rimbaud's demise, gems and a rotten knee. Plath's passing, her daddy thought it a gas. I thought I had more, but I guess I missed. Oh well. Speaking of the Fess, nah. Shall we, Leslie? This is called Last Leaf Falling. This last leaf falling has sliced my heart. Its jagged edges, a fragile jigsaw, noiseless but in rustling company. It has ripped through me, and I stand silent, too stunned to even mock a gesture. Again, this madness that pulls me to beauty, has me dancing an autumnal dance, alone, bloody and stone-faced. If there's some form of ending, at least remind me of the beginning. Remind me of a time before all those promises became leaves that scattered when I came to collect them. Oh, I was going to do some prose, right? Do you want to? Yeah, but if you want to take a break or something. Just so she doesn't have to sit here and listen to my stuff. Isn't she great? I mean, well, that's why they are. I think it's because she's my son's age. And those kids are truly dynamite kids. A lot of people kind of push them off, you know, Gen X, what they call them, hackers. No, not hackers, slackers. That's bull. It's not true at all. So I'm really proud to be able to work with people like my son and Angela. Gotta suck a lemon, keep it fresh. Not my breath, the voice. No one's laughing today, are they? Winsome. All right, so this is some pieces of this kind of wild thing. One chapter, and this is a portion of, is called Ginsberg and Kidney Stones. Madison, 1981. Probably one of the most endearing qualities of Allen Ginsberg was his gentleness. Everyone who knew him has a story like this, and I doubt that mine is only different, but here it goes. In the pit of the Madison Civic Center, they call it the Crossroads, Allen, Corso, and Burroughs sat on a single bench playing to the press. Corso kept standing up, sitting down, an old trick that all of us drunks use. Burroughs kept smoking his cigarettes, looking at the carpet, looking, yawning at me, hidden conveniently behind one of those pillars down there. Ginsberg was sitting, nearly curled, making Zen contact with his Timex as the questions flew in. What was Kerouac really like? Do any of you think that drugs should be legalized? What do you think of Wisconsin? This is our great press here in town. Wonderful local press. Behind the pillar, I nearly spilled up my drink. Scotch and stupidity don't really mix. Lonely Silverman finally got the hint, stood up and announced that the interview was over. Corso sat down, Burroughs woke up. Ginsberg gave me a bow and fled to my pillar. Tush, I need some, you know. Tush, I need some help. I need to take a nap. I can't make it back to the Union. We had rented a place at the Union for me. I need to lay down now. Come with me. I led him to the third-floor gallery. Frank Stella's work was on exhibit. Beautiful autumn light through those great windows in that great room sprayed and shamed those damn fluorescent lights. We pushed 2 green benches together. I have kidney stones. I'm in pain, Tush. Ellen sat and folded into himself, and I think he went away. The gallery was empty except for the sun, Frank Stella's wonder, and Ellen Ginsberg's body resting on 2 green benches. I had keys, so I looked around, caught a glimpse of peace, walked out, and locked the doors. This next one is called Corso and the Coed. And this is only the voice on the other end was difficult this time, tight. The type of voice that would start sweating if it had to go on for too long. Tush, $400, I need $400. Medical bill, you got it? I made a little laugh and became edgy. I worried, wrongly, that if I'd said no, he'd never call again. And I knew if I said yes, 2 things would happen. He would certainly call again, and I would have to borrow $350 from friends to honor his request. I first met Gregory Corso in New York's Lower East Side. It was 67 or 68. That old chestnut about the 60s is, unfortunately, partially true. He had just given a reeling, and I was able to say hello, and that's about it. He frightened me. His speech was like a runaway bar car, loaded with Gilgamesh and Shelley. He gesticulated madly like the true Italian ghetto boy he was. Even then, both ends of his candles were ablaze. Years later, after gilding Corso's San Francisco number from Ginsberg, I called him and asked him if he'd like to come to Maldison to give a reading. I was working at the Maldison Arts Center, and Lanny Silverman was a curator there. We had planned to do a series of local poetry and music, but I wanted somebody from the outside to come in and kick it off. Having never been here before and short of Malney, Corso agreed to make the trip. We had offered him $300, airfare and all expenses. On the phone, he seemed to be elated to wing out to Maldison. It was February. Like I said, he'd never been here before. There was a problem, however. Corso was having difficulty with his on-again, off-again heroin habit. He phoned and asked me if I'd had some. He didn't want to carry. I had to tell him that I hadn't banged smack in a decade. I did say perhaps I could get him a script for methadone. He replied that'd be great. He, quote, just didn't want to get sick, unquote, that far away from home. So I called my then Zen doctor, who was also a poet, and this is Dr. Larry Giles, who was a dear poet and a very good friend of mine, who passed about a week ago. So I called my then Zen doctor and explained the situation. He wanted to help, but said that only the state's head doctor could write a script for methadone. head doctor. My doc tried to call this head doctor, but he was in Canada for a month. Things were beginning to look a little bleak. No one else knew about this. You're the, well, a couple of people. Oh, no more than what's, how many is, no one else knew. Finally, well, what happened is we couldn't get a methadone script for Gregorio, and so I stuck my neck out, and finally I called an old junkie friend in Chicago and told him to rustle up some stuff and meet Gregorio at O'Hare. My friend vaguely knew who Corso was and didn't think he would recognize him. I told my friend not to worry, that he needed only to watch for somebody who looked like he just flew in from San Francisco without a plane. And I skip ahead here a little bit. So finally he's here. This was not the night with Alan and Burroughs. This was the year before. Okay, and we have them up on Francis. What's that hotel up there up on Francis Estate? The Madison Inn, right? No, right? Who cares? So we're going off to the Realty at the Arts Center. He and I were hanging out in his hotel room. He was reading Diggett Sports Illustrated. Big time. Big time. So remember, it's February. Coming out of the hotel into the nighttime, blasts of ugly cold wind were ripping up Francis Street, ice shelter. Corso had his breath blown away, and the sidewalk, plastered with layers of snow and ice, crunched heavy beneath our feet. Francis, between State and Langdon Street, is a sharp decline, and we were going down it. A college woman was coming up the other side. We were the only 3 people on the block. All of a sudden, there was another blast of wind, whipped up the street. I was thrown up against the wall. Kind of used to that. Corso crouched, put his bottle in a brown bag down, and darted like a scaler across the street. Meanwhile, the co-ed had been blown off her feet, and she was on her back with hundreds of loose papers swirling in little white tornadoes above her. But Corso was there, sliding on his ass, picking up sheets of paper when he was down and handing them to her when he was up. He fell 2 or 3 times when something very interesting happened. The wind stopped, completely stopped. And suddenly the night was still and as quiet and as crisp as any February night could be. Corso continued picking up the papers, no longer looking like he might be blown off the planet. The co-ed was finally standing, tears crisscrossing the smile on her face. I was crouched over the bag, paper bag, smiling at its contents. Finally, Corso struggled back to the sidewalk. He was wearing this near-toothless grin so huge, I could have stepped into it. Now, if that wasn't an act of God, he whispers while grabbing his bag with one hand and taking my arm with the other. that I've been a very lucky person. I've got to meet and hang out with a whole bunch of really wonderful people, many of whom are in this room. Most of all who are in this room, I guess. I have the honor to do this. This is a fucking honor. I thank you. All right, this is, I'll read another portion of a chapter. It's called Taking a Belt for the Catholics. So I was adopted by this pair of sadistic Philistines. Adopted for insurance money. Murder was on the wing. I knew it. I felt it. I tried to run away from it when I was 4. I got a long stick, red bandana, wrapped my baseball glove in a moldy cheese sandwich in that hopeful red bandana, and took off. It had been raining for days, so I wore my boots too. 3 blocks toward freedom. I was knee-deep in mud, trapped in my boots, isolated in their paces. I could go no further. I was stuck. Freedom had eluded me once again. I'm 4 years old here. The Philistines pulled up in their 49 Ford, grabbed me from the mud, and threw me in the back seat. I knew, and I shuddered at what would happen next. Inside the garage, pungent with the smell of oil, gas, and hatred, he made me pull my pants down. Not having the manners to ask me to bend over, he pushed my head down to my knees, pulled his belt off, buckle side readily, and whipped my 4-year-old ass. I don't remember which was flowing more, tears of blood or dreams of freedom. It was then I swore at 4 that I would never give up. That regardless of any pain, obstruction, or beating, this sorry ass would survive. In my early years, I served a lot of time in that stinking garage. Beaten for laughing in church, for looking up a nun's habit, blue and white polka dots. Think about it. This is true, I saw it. For closed-mouth kissing Jeannie at the foot of the statue of our Savior. For trading my holy cards for baseball cards. Times were tough, and they got tougher. Like I said, murder was on the wing. Man, we gotta lighten this up. How about some wonderful music? Angela McJunkin. Yeah. Shall we do, let's do something real light. Actually, all my stuff is real light. Just got you fooled. Well, I know it's, oh, here we go. Xmas poem. Yeah, as long as we're in, we're coming up to Christmas, which is always such a wonderful part of American tradition. Sure trips my trigger. Okay, it's called Xmas Poem. I've been Roncoed, K-Tel, Mabeld, and Propiled. It must be Christmas. I've been Cresquied, Prangied, Pennied, and Seared. It must be Christmas. I've been Tonkaed, computerized, Fisher-Price, and aced. It must be Christmas. I've been Black and Deckered, Chess and Checkered, Blue Ball and sold out. It must be Christmas. Jesus Christ, right home. When we rehearsed, what, a couple of times, all we did was crack up. We would just...
At least on this one.
What?
At least for this one.
Well, this one is, this is... We're taking a step in the kind of other direction. It's based on a true story, too. It's called The Rite of Spring. She, born with a tail, I born with webbed feet. Our eyes meet and perform the waltz of the oars. A crippled grandmother is dying. Next door, she is lying, dying. The waltz goes on, and she, the tailed one, is slipping her clothes off, her jeans caught in her tail. She stares at my webbed feet, calls me quack, as I pretend to help the crippled grandmother who is lying dying next door. It's spring, cries a hunchback from the basement. Who let you out, cries I, caressing the crippled grandmother with my webbed feet while Lord waltzing with the tailed one. No one, says he. It's spring, I'm free. Now it's your turn. Told you it was a true story. I mean, Dick, can you imagine having to live in this head? Shall we do the Broken Museum? Looks like it's up there. It's called Broken Museum. Like a broken museum, I sit on your block, a broken winged bird, just a tick of the talk. Old times have wasted me, new times don't knock. I'm a faded chip painting with a worn smile and dirty socks. Suicide comes at 4 o'clock. The dance begins at 8. I turn the lights down low. Peering from the gallery, I see souls to souls, hearts and toe. O'Keefe rests in the corner, smiling to a lily flower. Monet's just jealous, while Manet just cowers. Andy swishes through, his cape caught in the door. Shot once before, he hits the floor. And slides into Rimbaud, who's trying so hard to look like Joe D'Alessandro as Vincent holds the trump card. So all in all, it's another day on the block, probably with art. Suicide comes at 4 o'clock. Shall we go toward the end of the last bit? Do you have a copy of,
No.
No? Oh, I wish so.
I must have given it.
Yeah. Well, let's go with, no, that's all right, that's all right. If nothing else, I'll just make something up. You wouldn't want to do that. Bonds, there it is, there it is. Bonds in,
That's second.
yeah. Can I borrow it though? Oh, you can have it back. I couldn't memorize a poem of mine. Yeah, I couldn't.
Okay, you do it.
All right. Oh, wait. Let's do this first. Guess what this is?
Chapeau.
It's a hat. Very good. Also, when it comes back to me, it's going to help me pay my rent, which I'm two months later on, and I will share with Angela 50-50. So I am going to pass a hat. I don't know where I should start, so I'll just throw it to my school hat. Don't steal it. You can steal the money, don't steal the hat.
You take credit card?
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, I'll take all of your credit cards. Oh, let's do this, no, the phone song, while we're doing this, it's light. Kind of thing. I wrote this, the other peers, but only because they were from who they were from. Bukowski was always incoherent, and so was I, so nothing was ever solved. Corsa wanted money, $400, once for bail, once for a medical bill, always $400. I never really knew. Well, it was when I wrote this name, I didn't really know. So once I got a call, a woman started talking real sexy, and just when I got ready, she hung up. Most people don't realize that it costs more money to not have your name published in the phone book than it does to have it published. And the cost increases even as I speak. Hiding has gotten more expensive. While writing this, I've received more calls than I have all week. AT&T can't match that kind of communication. I'm having my name published for the first time since 1967. I just couldn't go all the way, though. I didn't give him my address. Okay, we're going to wind this up with 3 last poems. Well, not last poems. Hopefully.
How do you know?
Yeah, good point. I don't know. The more I know, the more I know, the less I know. You know? Or a similar facsimile thereof. Now I can't find a romantic poem. Yes, I can. It'll get there. This is called, okay, this is called Bombs and Snacks. I guess I slipped it. Bombs and Snacks. Oh, what the hell, jump in. This is how we rehearse, isn't it cool? Isn't it? I mean, and I've worked with jazz bands and blues bands. I've been doing this stuff for since 1969. In fact, my first reeling was in 1969. Felix Pollock, William Stafford, and our beloved Larry Giles was in the audience. It was at Broome Street Theater. When they weren't on, in fact, they weren't on Broome Street very much at all. But, so it's 1969. Yeah, I'm poor at math, but it's a hell of a long time. It's so long I forgot my point. I don't care. Let's. Oh, rehearsal. Right. Yeah. I've been honored and blessed to work with some of the best musicians around, not just around here, but around the country. I don't know, it's just so, and Angela and I, this is how we rehearse. I'm serious. When that kind of magic clicks, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. All right, hey, Bombs and Snacks. Tons of wheat, of grain in burlap bags, lies wrapped within lies, rain from the skies. As murder, the holy snake, snaps at victims and makes them late for the tea party. So they're kept at the gate, outside, looking out, nodding at their fate. A bombed-out hovel, dust and tears appear to cuddle on the chipped-out plate. In the sky, the pained and gray sky continues to weep. Okay, 2 more, and then we get to, well, I don't know. Yeah, the steel and concrete one, though. Huh?
Okay, I don't have it.
Yeah, it looks like I don't have it. But
What's on the floor?
it's on the floor. Boy, this is a trick. I just had both of my hips replaced, so I'm not. I couldn't die for it like when I used to play first base. This is called Steel and Concrete, Blood and God. I wrote this in the afternoon of 9/11/01. Trying to remain calm, non-judgmental, hip, progressive, and yes, religious too. Pushing an I-beam off my beamer, I saw God. She was my God. She was bigger than their God. A body flew past me. Patches of blood pierced, tattooed my face. I dropped my head, wished that I'd not been led, fed, and now bled by some mysterious fantasy. God. God is what they called her. God is what they said. So now the picture unfolds. It's God versus God. As the rest of us, sweet, sweet humanity, are crushed by steel and concrete, deception and howls from a demon who so cowardly fled. Pick a God, pick a war. I think we'll stop. I don't feel like... I'm tired. I'm sure you're tired, probably bored as hell too. Here's
More.
I'll read one last poem. Okay, we'll do a romantic poem. This is an uplifting poem. It's about Sonny and my son and our dog.
Take a breath.
And take a breath. Okay. Okay, this is called Romantic Poem number 4,369. And it was written in 1977, before I was born. It's 5 a.m. again. All night struggling with impossible poetry nonsense. My typer is making angry noises at me. So I quit, pull my skinny ass out of Goodwill plastic chair and open another beer. Water the plants, watch the front yard train choke by, squashing high school pennies. And in a moment of pride, I sneak a peek at young son, so oblivious to pennies and trains, typers and poems. Crawled up he has, his hairy little head trying to push through the prison walls. Laughing in his sleep, he makes me weep in my awakeness. I want to pull him up and hold him tight, probably too tight. So I open another beer, hold my nose and change the cat box. Take black dog for quick walk along railroad tracks, no flat pennies. So in we come, quiet as a pair of idiots, into a cloth room. My friend, lady, lover, still in deep sleep. A smile curls her lips. She is dreaming perhaps of Alsace, or of being in another man's bed. Ah, such freedom in dreams. I want to be in her dream. I want to show her the parts of Paris that tourists never see. But no, it's her dream. She is where she needs to be. So I sit down to face angry typer and come up with something like this. The frosted window 2 stories up tempts me like a wind in the teeth of a cloud. Seconds later, there's a kiss on the back of my neck. I turn. Sonny's smiling. Jordan's crying and wet. So we're all awake. A new day's beginning. And with that,
Thank you both so very much. This had the spirit of the 60s today, definitely. And I also really want to thank you so much for mentioning Larry Giles.
yeah.
I think Larry Giles, who was a Zen doctor in every sense, would have loved this afternoon. I really do.
Yeah.
I do. And, you know, before we leave, and I don't know if you have anything more planned.
With just one
Yes,
thing.
definitely. Andrea would like to make an announcement afterwards. Okay?
Oh, the poet laureate?
Yes.
Poet laureate's here? Oh my God, I'm humbled.
About report, poet laureate present, poet laureate past and present. Just wanted to remind those of you who know about it and to mention to those of you who have not yet heard. November 17th, which is a Saturday, Rusty Russell has gotten a whole bunch of us together, and we hope that you will be part of the bunch to read poetry, dance, sing, greet each other, to raise money to give to Doctors Without Borders,
Yes.
so that they can feed and bring medicine to people of Afghanistan. So that is Saturday, November 17th. Put it on your calendar.
Where is
Start
it?
with Poets in Hand 2, the Electric Earth Cafe. Woo! I think it begins at 7. 8. But you need to get there early if you want to read. So come at 7 if you want to read. Come at any time during the evening if you just want to schmooze and give money. And there'll be door prizes and all sorts of ways to raise money and feel like your money is going towards the people who need it.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks a lot. I'll show up. Okay, this last thing, on Thursday morning, Tony Castaneda has this, he has this show on board. And he called me at home live because he wanted me to talk a little bit about the pledge stuff and the band stuff. And well, I won't go into it too much, but the main point that I guess point that irritated some people enough to continue to irritate me via phone and email. My main suggestion was that the national anthem be switched to this one. You'll recognize